We're joined by the legendary coach, Charlie Weis. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coach. Before we get started, I got to ask you this. I'm so fascinated by this. You got, 4 Super Bowl rings? You coached at Notre Dame for 5 or 6 years, and yet you didn't play college football. How are you able to, because so many of the of coaches that reach that level, they played and moved on. How you just tell us a little bit about, your career and your progression to, not have that background in college football and yet attain the things that you did?
Well, I realized at a young age I wasn't good enough to play, big time sports. So I wanted to be a sports announcer. So I went to Notre Dame. That's where I went to my undergrad. And when I went there, my intent was to be a broadcaster. Now, I also used my electives and got certified to teach just as a fallback in case that didn't work out. And eventually, after I graduated, I got offered a job with an NBC affiliate to get into sportscasting for $6,000 a year. And I decided, no, I don't think I'm going to go this route. Probably the biggest mistake I ever made. I probably should have stuck with that. But at the end of the day, I just started teaching and coaching in high school on a low level, start freshman and work JV and then varsity. And the next thing you know, I'm down in South Carolina. Then I end up with the Giants. And, just all I did was worked harder than everyone else and was the first one in the building, the last one to leave, and tried not to screw it up. And I got a little lucky along the way.
Coach Weis, what do you think about the job Marcus Freeman has done there at Notre Dame and the program that he continues to elevate each year?
Well, he walked into a pretty good situation talent-wise. And, I think that from the time I left through Kelly and then on to Freeman, a lot of the little things that need to happen, from the infrastructure, which people don't understand how important infrastructure is when you're building a winning organization. But from the infrastructure to the support, the support both on and off the field, I think that he walked into a pretty good situation. Now, that being said, I think that he's shown that he can be a frontline big time coach. And, Notre Dame's not an easy place to coach, as you know, because it's like the Yankees. Either you're loved or you're hated. There's no in between. There's no indifference when it comes to being at Notre Dame. And I think he's doing himself. He's done himself proud so far.
Hey, Coach. Of course, the Aggies are heading up to South Bend Saturday. How much, as somebody that's been there, how much is that home field advantage? How much of an advantage is it playing in Notre Dame Stadium and all the mystique that comes with it?
Well, it's not loud like your place is. Texas A&M and the 12th man, that's one of the more raucous places you can go to. The stadium's gotten a little louder after they built the upper deck because they didn't have the upper deck at first. And, the sound just goes out of the stadium. I played in a lot of stadiums, like University of Michigan was quiet. Mm-hmm. Even though they had 100,000 people, it was quiet because it was, because all, it was so spread out and the noise would just, leave the stadium. So it all depends on where you are. I think that those stadiums that are built up high and on top of you end up being significantly louder. Now, that being said, it's always easier to play at home than play on the road.
Talking to Charlie Weis here on TexAgs Live. Coach Weis, I want to ask you about C.J. Carr. I came away really impressed with him, the poise when he went on the road. I know that Notre Dame didn't get the result, but I thought he looked pretty good. With a coaching mind that you have, what did you like, and maybe what would you like to see him work on this week against A&M?
Well, I liked his perseverance that he hung in there, but at least a third of his passes were off target, and he's going to have to do better than that against the good teams to win. But he showed a lot of perseverance. It wasn't an easy game. It was inclement weather. I mean, Miami's got a solid football team, and they could have thrown in the towel there in the second half when they got down 2 scores, and he got him back. He got him back to even. They gave him the late field goal, but he used both his arm and his legs, and he got better as the game went on with his arm, and he used his legs enough. And I think that's one of the things that Texas A&M is going to now have to concern themselves with, is you can't just say, well, Riley Leonard's gone, the quarterback can't run anymore, because this guy showed that he's got a little running ability as well as being able to throw it okay.
Well, speaking of running, Coach, I was a little bit surprised that Jeremiah Love didn't carry the ball more than they did. As a coach, would you have? How would you utilize having the 2 running backs that they have at Notre Dame, because they have 2 really good ones?
Well, I didn't understand that game. I think Mike Denbrock is a very good offensive coordinator. I happened to be at this game, and with inclement weather, a first-time starting quarterback and a couple of stud running backs, I thought that they would hand the ball off a whole bunch. As a matter of fact, if you go back and check statistically at Notre Dame over the last 3 years or so, when they don't run the ball more than 28 times, they lose. Go look at it. I mean, that's a half dozen times they haven't run the ball more than 28 times, and every one of them they've lost. So I can bet you $1 right now they'll be running it more than 28 times this week.
Coach Weis, I'm not sure how much you've watched of A&M, but what do you think about what Coach Elko's been trying to do from an offensive perspective and a defensive perspective?
Another New Jersey guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I thought you really very easily could have won the game last year, and I thought Notre Dame had a better team last year than they have this year. I think you very easily could have won that game. That being said, the one thing about Elko is he knows Notre Dame. Having been there as an assistant, he knows, and that gives you a little bit of advantage because he knows what to get his guys ready to go. Your quarterback is not a rookie anymore. So you're looking at Marcel going in there with now some experience behind him. You got a couple of tune-up games, which you didn't have last year at this time. I mean, this is setting up for, I'm expecting strength to be attacking weaknesses on both sides in this game.
Coach, I want to ask you something, kind of a big picture here of college football. With all the changes in college football and
remember now, I'm hotty toddy all the way here now. My kid's the OC at Ole Miss, so I mean everything. I'm a fan once a week. And that's when the Rebels play. Other than that, I just watch games.
Okay, but I'm going to ask you as a Notre Dame alum and a former coach, would it, in your opinion, would it behoove Notre Dame at any point? Could you ever see a scenario when Notre Dame actually enters a conference, or do you think Notre Dame is always going to be independent and that's the best thing for Notre Dame?
Well, I always felt that they should have been in the conference, but that's not the mentality at the place. They want to be independent because, to be honest with you, as you know, college football is a big business. We can say whatever we want, but it's a big business. And they're making a lot more money on their own than they would be than if they were in a conference.
Coach Weis, this was fantastic, sir. Thanks for making a few minutes, and I hope to chat with you again at some point in the future.
Well, good. This should be a very entertaining game, and I think that you'll see both teams running the ball a whole bunch in this game.
It'll be fun, sir. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Take care.